Hello, and welcome to the Digital Indigenous Storytelling Project. In this series, we'll be interviewing Indigenous individuals who live in Missouri and have them share a story about themselves and their culture. My name is Eric Pinto. I'm Choctaw, Mississippi, and Zuni of New Mexico, and a project coordinator for the Catherine M. Booter Center of American Indian Studies at Washington University in St. Louis. In this segment, I'll be interviewing Maria Hussman. Maria, thank you for participating in this project. Can you give us a little background introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thank you for interviewing me. It's exciting to be involved with a project with a student at WashU. My name is Maria Hussman. I live in St. Louis, Missouri. I live actually out in the burbs in Baldwin, Missouri. And I am Anishinaabe. I'm Odawa and Ojibwe Indian on both sides of my family. And yeah, I am a stay-at-home mom. So my occupation is homemaker. And I've lived in St. Louis all my life. I was born in St. Charles. I grew up in O'Fallon, Missouri, going to the Fort Zumwalt schools. So don't hold that against me, I guess. And I loved it. I'm a St. Louisan at heart. My roots may be Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and Northern Minnesota, but I'm a St. Louisan. Let's go Blues.
Awesome. Glad to hear you're a Blues fan.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I guess just I can just start answering some of your questions, or if you want to, I don't know if you want to read them to me, and I answer.
For you. Yeah. Yeah. Can you share and talk more about your families, like where they all came from, and just kind of tell a little bit about their background and how you ended up here and everything.
Yeah. Well, I'm an enrolled member of the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Odawa Indians, and my dad is actually from Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, and he is Ojibwe. And on my mom's side, I have Odawa and Potawatomi. So originally, my grandpa was here for work because St. Louis was a place to work, and that's where he met my grandma, who is like full St. Louis German, like the most German of Germans in St. Luis. And it was really different growing up here in this area because St. Louis tends to be kind of a lull in Indian country. We aren't near, we don't have any reservations in Missouri. We don't have any historically native colleges or universities in Missouri. I don't think that people realize how important Washington University's programs are to Indian country. I don't think it's something that a lot of people really realize is here. So it was definitely something that I had to seek out, learning about my people. My dad was not around growing up, so a lot of the responsibility was on my mom and my mom's side of the family. And my grandma, actually, the German grandma from St. Louis, she took the lead in all of that because my mom was a single mom trying to work. So my grandma took me to powwows and ceremonies and introduced me to families in the area and just really helped me build a network of people to help teach me and to be in, part of a community, I guess. So I have met so many people in St. Louis, in the Native community in St. Louis. And because almost everyone in this area is a transplant from somewhere else, it's really extended the network of people that I know. So now I know even more people probably than I would have otherwise, if that makes any sense. I know people from Oklahoma to New York to California and Wyoming, and I've traveled a lot more than maybe I would have if I'd have been somewhere where I didn't need to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've kind of had to extend the network, so it was really cool.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and then kind of going off that, how did your family instill like your tribe's culture or fit the culture into your daily life? Is there any like specific cultural connections that that you specifically remember that you could share with us, and how you kind of taken those connections and teachings and kind of pass that within your own family?
Yes, I was fortunate enough to make friends with a family in St. Louis who were from Minnesota and who have since moved back to Minnesota, and I miss them so much. But they were really instrumental in helping teach me things as I was growing up that were in like important rites of passage, things like naming ceremonies, which are very important to Anishinaabe people, and just things are surrounding like womanhood, like monthly ceremonies with other women. So things that to me seemed pretty normal as a young person, I would definitely realize like none of my other friends are having a full moon ceremony. I am the only one that is doing this. None of my other friends are going to sweat lodge. None of my other friends are going to even 49 stuff like that. So it it was really really cool. It was also kind of odd because back then, I'm 38 years old now. So back when I was growing up, we didn't have the same way of connecting with other people that young people do now. We didn't have like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff. It was really just like the other kids that I could manage to get in touch with and keep in touch with. So um, it was a lot of learning about things from other adults, because I just wasn't connecting with other people on social media. Does that kind of answer the question? I feel like I kind of messed that one up. Um, how did, yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I do definitely remember doing things growing up that I didn't have a lot of I didn't have a lot of other kids around to compare those experiences to.
Right.
So maybe if I'd have grown up closer to extended family in Minnesota, in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, maybe I would have shared more of that. And, in my mind, as a young person, I almost didn't want to do these things when I was young because I didn't have a lot of close family nearby also doing the same stuff. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, luckily I had family that it was very important to, like my mom and my grandma and my grandpa, and extended family that I still had that kind of pushed me to learn about these things and to kind of keep my nose to the grindstone.
Yeah, yeah. So then would you and your family travel at all to visit like relatives from where they were all from, like where your grandpa?
Yeah, not often because we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so long travel like that wasn't an option until I was a little older. But yes, we did, and we would try to meet family midway, and I would have family that would come and visit too, that would come and visit us. So
okay. And did you go up and like visit like where the relatives actually all were at? You mentioned that you would meet like halfway. So was it every time that you guys would meet halfway, or would you all travel up to where they lived at? Like
I did that later on my own. That wasn't something that we could really do when I was younger. Mm-hmm. But now that I'm an adult, I have done that. And as soon as I'm able to, I would love to make it more of a regular event. It was difficult to do that for a while because I went away for college and then I worked and traveled a lot for work. So getting any time away from work, it seemed, was just a little tough. Mm-hmm. But now I'm more in a position where I'm more settled. I'm married with a family, and then I have a little daughter who's 2.5 that you can hear screaming in the background. Sorry. I think she just got out of the bath and my husband's chasing her around. Now I'm in a place where I really want to go back more often. We're going up in Minnesota to see family. We're actually going to a wedding in Minnesota. So while we're there, hopefully I'll get to connect with some people. And then as soon as we're able to travel a little more freely, it would be really nice to make it more of a regular thing.
Yeah. And then to give the people that don't know the experience or just aren't familiar with, the life on like, reservations and stuff, like Could you like give us like an experience, like, how life is up there, like compared to like St. Louis, or what was your kind of comparison between the two places? You would think.
It's been a while since I've made the trip all the way to Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And while I was there, I stayed very close to one family member. But my impression was definitely that I have a lot to be thankful for in the proximity that I have to schools, to healthcare, just to resources, job opportunities that I need. Um, I think that a lot of people, maybe people like me, who would count themselves more as Midwestern natives, don't have a good understanding of what kind of conditions often our relatives on reservations face. And it's definitely was an eye-opening experience for me when I was there, because there was some poverty that I didn't expect. There was uh, some violence that I didn't expect, that I'd kind of never realized that I was living in the safety bubble of St. Louis, if you can even imagine, that. So many people think, oh, St. Louis, but yeah, I hadn't really realized the access that I had living and growing up here. So going there for visits, and then just being, especially as ease of communication has increased because of things like social media, because of the accessibility I can have now with family members that I didn't have before. I've realized I have a lot to be thankful for, and I also have a lot of help that I need to send back home, and a lot of awareness that I need to spread where I can, especially with people who don't know, with my own family, with my daughter, who's also going to grow up in St. Louis. I don't have any plans to move. I like St. Louis. So she'll grow up here as well. So I want to make sure that connection, that mindfulness doesn't end with me. When it comes to that. Now, I know there's a lot of improvements. There's a lot of great things that are being done both on my grandfather's reservation and my father's original lands. But I still think that there's a lot that I can be doing in my little corner to help if I can.
Yeah. And did you notice, like, while visiting up there, the people seem like they're able to connect. I wouldn't say connect. Do you feel like the people were had like a strong sense with their culture? Like, did they feel like there was, I guess, like a sense of threat to, like, maybe like the language or any other aspects to their culture? Or do you feel like, that was very strongly, had a very strong presence within their community?
I think that the opportunity was there to have a connection with traditions and with ceremonies and with language. I think it's just like with anything, that young people have so many things, so much coming at them every day, that if they don't see how it can apply to their own life, that it's not going to interest them. I know I was the exact same way. I know, because I was a teenager that was reluctant to miss a basketball game to go to a powwow because I wanted to go to a basketball game with my friends, or reluctant to travel to Michigan because I was going to miss homecoming, or I was so interested in what I felt like really affected me. So I think that, because I think things are improving so much, because there's so many more cool, and I just actually am talking to a group of middle schoolers this week about this, about how accessible culture is now, how many social media platforms out there just give you this window peek into the language and the crafts and the music and the storytelling and the filmmaking and everything. So back when I was there, I saw that the opportunities were there for young people. And it was just kind of like anything where you just have to keep trying. You just have to keep presenting the opportunities and keep trying to keep them as interested as possible. But yeah, I definitely, the shorter answer is yes, that I do see how easy it is to have access to language and community there, and that is something that I wish I had more of here, but I don't. I'm not ungrateful for what I have here either. I'm always going to want more, but I'm happy with what I have here. But I'm always gonna want more. I'm always gonna be talking to a cousin who was able to just go to an art, a powwow every weekend in the month of September, while I'm just like anxiously waiting for Wash U in April. So, I'm always gonna be jealous of that. But hopefully, again, whenever things are like opening up, I can travel more. I can do a lot more things. But I've just kind of been stuck inside on like Instagram and TikTok all summer. Just jealous.
Right. At least we have been, being able to connect with everybody through, like you said, like social media and just, other forms of technology that, during this tough time. So,
yeah.
And then, in the beginning, you kind of mentioned about a little bit about your experience between like you and, living here as an Indigenous woman. Could you kind of talk and tell us a little bit more about like what your experience was like being an Indigenous woman like within the St. Louis community?
Well, I learned very quickly that community and family were everything, and I learned that I had 100 different aunties watching me, and that there was just a network of people that were invested in me as a young person. And of course, like being a teenager, I was such a dork. I was such a jerk when I was a teenager. I was completely uninterested, but as I've grown up, I've realized how special all of those relationships were. And it shaped my attitude as an Indigenous woman in St. Louis, because being in this area, I am a minority. We are one of the, we are the is biggest minority really, is that those words really go together? We are the most minority. I can't think of the right way to say it. There's just not very many of us,
right.
So I know a lot. I feel like I know a lot of people. It's exciting for me when I meet someone that I don't know, who is someone that's involved with their culture like that. It's also made me somewhat skeptical when I meet someone that says, "Oh yeah, my friend is this and this," and then I meet their friend and I think, I don't know you. I've never seen you before. I've never heard your name. I don't know anybody you're related to at all. You're just somebody that's wearing a wolf t-shirt and leading seances at birthday parties. Like you're not. Yeah. So on the one hand, it's like made me so inclusive, but it's also sometimes had me throw up a wall, because I look at other people sometimes and think, do I know you? Like, are you legit? Because I'm legit. Are you legit? Like, so yeah, that's been my experience, and it also has made me very, I think, or I hope to be very patient, because again, living in an area where it's a narrow spot on the Powwow Highway, there's not a lot of activities here for natives. So I am a lot of people's only Native American friend. So I get a lot of random questions. I get a lot of sometimes sort of offensive questions. And especially as I've become more outgoing and I've gotten more involved with like my little side hustle, my little side business, sewing ribbon skirts and talking to school age kids. Um, I've realized like, wow, there are a lot of people that just have no clue about anything. I'm talking to classrooms of kids that 1 or 2 states over would at least know what a reservation is, would at least know that Native American is not a tribal name, that it's like a group name, that I don't speak Native American, that I don't eat Native American food. Like, kids in Kansas are like, oh yeah, we know that. But in St. Louis, growing up here, I would say Anishinaabe, and people were like, what? What is that? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. I would say Ojibwe, and they would say Ojibwe. What is that? I would say Chippewa, and they'd say, oh, like the street. And I'm like, right, okay. So it's been a blessing and a curse at times. It's made me more patient. It's made me more open-minded. It's also somewhat made me more skeptical of some people, like the girl that told me she has a Indian spirit guide who visits her in dreams. I'm on the PTO and I'm very involved with my stepkids' school. And, sometimes people get very excited when they find out that I have Native ancestry. And so they want to like tell me all these things. And I've definitely been backed up against the wall at a bake sale and told all about someone's, visions and crystals. And I've just always tried to respond to it with humor. I've tried to respond to it with patience and trying to recognize intent, I've been given so many gifts of, like ceramic candle holders shaped like teepees, or like hats that have embroidered wolves on them, like from people that are very excited to know like a person who is Native, that they can finally give this stuff to, right? Like they finally have an excuse to buy it. So it's given me a hard shell, but a soft center.
Yeah, and that's definitely like a hardship. Like, you kind of mentioned this, within yourself, that, living here, as a kid and growing up, and you sharing your experience through school, and then, and then you just, you spoke about, how it's like with being as a parent, and seeing your child kind of go through these issues. And there's just a lot of holes and gaps within, the education system that we see, like, about teaching about Native culture and who we are as people. So,
yeah. And that's something that I hope to be able to help with here, which is where I plan on staying. I'm not ever going to claim to be an expert in any kind of tribal teachings or customs, but I will always be trying to give out the information of the guy that is. When people come to me and they're excited about their ancestry.com results and they want to know all about, they found out that they have a great something or other, maybe way back there that's Navajo, and they're so excited to tell me, I try to slow them down, tell them, well, here's maybe a more respectful way to say literally everything you just said. And let me introduce you to somebody who's actually Navajo, like that can get you in touch with other people that are actually Navajo. Like, not the guy that sold you the candles at the mall, like somebody that's actually going to teach you about your people. And I tell, whenever I do talk to school age students, I always encourage them, hey, it is okay to learn about all of this and ask questions and to be proud of that little bit that maybe you do have on a grandparent's side. No, that's great. Be totally proud of who you are. They would want you to be proud of that about yourself, not ashamed. But do it in a respectful way. Don't just Google Native American songs. Learn about what's in your history. Learn about what's in your area. I encourage a lot of students in the area to learn about the Cherokee, the Osage, the Pawnee, tribes that we knew were in this area, traveled through this area, and still live in this area, right? So hopefully that's what I'm able to bring to to Baldwin.
Yeah.
To the rich. I shouldn't knock Baldwin. Baldwin's great. Okay, I love Baldwin. God, I don't need anybody coming after me. But hopefully that's what I can bring to the burbs.
Yeah. And, we kind of spoke on that before. Within talking about those like gaps that are within, the teachings of our education, being here in Missouri, there's just that lack of like awareness that there was tribes that lived on these lands. And,
right.
You only hear about like, when people kind of had to go, like you mentioned, like the Cherokee, like you might hear something about the Trail of Tears or, the whole Indian removal era, where, Indian people were being moved to their reservation lands now. And then you might hear a little bit about, that current status a little bit, but yeah, you don't really hear in-depth information, within our history at all,
Mm-hmm.
What can you tell us of what's your experience and about the indigenous people that live in St. Louis, and what's your sense of that community, and what were there like local events that where you all kind of connected, or kind of discuss about that?
Yeah, well, I grew up at a time when there were a lot more Native families, and I'm just going to say Native for the purposes of just sort of summarizing. Mm-hmm. When there were a lot more Native families in St. Louis, the American Indian Center used to be in St. Louis. There was the American Indian Society, Thunderbird Society, Kaskaskia River Dancers. There were a lot of community groups in this area and in Illinois that would put on art shows, classes, potlucks, family gatherings, and a lot of powwows. So I grew up actually going to powwows a lot, and traveling around far away, but also a lot of powwows here in Missouri and Illinois. There were times where there was a time in St. Louis where there was a powwow at Jefferson Barracks every year and at Grant's Shelter. Jefferson Barracks was in the fall and Grant's Shelter was in the spring. Cahokia Mounds used to have a big powwow every year. There was one at Lindbergh High School, of course, Wash U, obviously. I've been going to theirs my whole life. Forest Park had one. Fort Zumwalt out in O'Fallon would have one every year. That was really exciting because it was right in the park right next to my house. Vandalia, Illinois, Vandalia, Missouri, because there's two. Farmington, SIUE, and I would go to all of these every year. Mattoon, Illinois. I mean, I could just name so many powwows that I grew up going to. So that was really where a lot of my connection started, was because I was a fancy shawl dancer. And over time, as I got older, I was competing. And so I was traveling for that. And then also I won some princess competitions when I was younger. So young. Oh my God. So young. I was a powwow princess like 8 times.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, I mean, I just wear it, like a hat. So it's so clear. But I really connected with people in that way. And then it all just started with my grandma and my mom whenever my mom could. But my mom was working a lot, again, like single mom, trying to support all of us. My grandpa was working too. My grandma was driving me to these powwows, every one that we could get to. And if we could make it out to Kansas City and stay out with friends in Kansas City and go to a few out there when it was the big season for them. Never made it as far as Gathering of Nations or Red Earth or any of those kinds of ones. But because the really long distance travel was a little too expensive for us. But if we could get to Chicago, it was great. And so from that, I would make connections with other families. I was able to go to some very special ceremonies on other reservations in Wyoming, with some family in Oklahoma, with some, and when I say family, I mean like culturally, not maybe necessarily blood relatives, but aunties and cousins. So I would get to be exposed to a lot of things, and then I'd come back home to St. Louis, where people were like, "Oh, Chippewa, like the street." So I would go from being, surrounded by all these people, going to all these places, and then going back to Fort Zumwalt West, which again I'm not going to knock because I don't need that kind of juju. Going back to O'Fallon, Missouri, in the 90s, when people were like, "Oh, what is all of that stuff?" So Wash U has become the lifeboat as far as powwows go for me for many years, especially when I was like young and trying to get my career started, not really able to travel like at all. Wash U was and has been the big one to go to, in addition to some other smaller ones maybe in the area. But Wash U was great because if nothing else, we've always had the Wash U powwow. Other things may have come and gone. A lot of these community groups have disbanded over the years because of either money issues or family ownership issues or management issues. Wash U has been a constant, so I've always been very, very grateful for that, and I have not been compensated for this endorsement of the Wash U powwow. It's great, and I hope that now that I'm in a position where I can be more settled, where I am just a bit more of a grown up, and less of like a dodo 20 something. Now I'm closing the door, on my 30s, and really entering a time where I think I can put a lot of hopefully more focus on doing my part to bring some more events and activities back to St. Louis. I've certainly tried to be involved and keep myself available as often as I can, whether it's helping out with Wash U activities like this, or I actually was on the Christopher Columbus Statue Commission with Tower Grove Park. They're interested in having a powwow.
Oh, wow.
If we can get them into it, but it's a lot of work, and it's a full-time job. And I mean, we've already been interrupted twice by my other unpaid full-time job. So, the 2.5-year-old that I have running around. So hopefully I'll be able to, the more I do, the more connections that I make with people like you, with people like the folks at Tower Grove and the city. Hopefully the more I do that, the more we can start to see a resurgence in activities for Indigenous people in St. Louis. I have a Facebook group, the Gateway American Indian Community, which is kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes of all of these various community groups that disbanded for whatever reason. The Gateway American Indian Community Facebook group is just a feel-good Facebook group. It doesn't have any extensive political or religious leanings. I'm not an extensively political or religious person, personally. I'm more like potlucks, classes, language, stories, culture. So hopefully, as we continue to grow with that, we'll get more and more people involved. We'll really bring back together this community in St. Louis, and I get really excited about it. Obviously, just because I think that there are so many great people in St. Louis, and I've seen influences that that still seem to be lingering negative influences from past issues, drama. So I'm all about inviting people and encouraging people. I'm not interested in counting blood quantums. I'm not interested. I'm just interested in who wants to help bring this back? Who wants to be a part of the positivity? I'm a Hufflepuff. Yeah. What can I say?
I'm glad you shared that, because that gives if there's any viewers, watching this, a way for them to connect with, other Native people that live in the area as well. So, yeah. So.
And I am adamant about that. I mean, I fight a lot of awkwardness with humor, in case that isn't glaringly obvious. But hey, if it's somebody that doesn't have a single bit of Native ancestry, but they are an ally to us, and they are impassioned about what their, this group they identify with believes, then I say they're welcome. And I think if I've known some very wonderful people, very talented people that have had a lot of ugliness thrown their way just because they maybe don't have that little colonial card, that has your pedigree listed on it. Mm-hmm. And that's just not what I'm about.
Right. Yeah, that's a totally different conversation there. So.
Sure. Yes, but all are welcome with Gateway American Indian.
That's good to know, because now I know that too. So I need to go sign up.
I just heard my husband go, "Oh my gosh!" He knows how I get about that kind of stuff. I always make the joke, like, the guy in the wolf T-shirt. Come on, hey, if you can help carry a cooler and you know how to run a generator, get in the truck. Help me set up for a powwow.
Yeah. That's what I kind of shake my head about, because people always ask, like, well, how much Indian are you? And it's like, I mean, like, I don't know, like, I mean, you can answer that, but in one way, but in another way, it's just, this brings up a totally different, topic and everything. So
right. We'll do that interview for your PhD assignment or whatever, right? We'll leave it. Yeah, we'll stick to St. Louis.
Yeah.
But I've had great experiences in St. Louis as an Indigenous person, and I've also seen people have really, really bad experiences.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I want to just do all I can to help make that not what I'm about, and what I associate with.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Okay. Another question. So you mentioned how you participated in numerous powwows, and you mentioned about the powwows that have kind of gone around within Missouri. What can you tell, like, the audience about powwows, like, in your experience, like, because they're not a traditional thing for every tribe, so what could you tell, of the audience about powwows?
Well, growing up in an area without a lot of other, Native kids my own age, and again, I mean, I'm just saying Native, like, generally, like, I'm not clarifying by, like, tribe or nation, but I had a lot of times where I didn't have anybody to go to a powwow with me, so I would make friends with other kids at the powwows, and I've made some great friends, obviously, over the years with that. But in my day-to-day life, I didn't always have that growing up. I didn't have, like, a friend at school that, understood why I could, like, barely run around the track on Monday morning. It was because I'd been dancing on, the concrete floor at Grant's Shelter all weekend. So I didn't always have that day-to-day experience. So that's something that sorry, you can just hear it scream. These kids. It's caffeine. She, now I have a daughter that I want to be involved in those things when she's growing up. So I have taken a lot of that. Okay, so to answer your question, growing up in an area without a lot of other Native kids my own age that I saw on a day-to-day basis, I didn't have, like, a powwow buddy. And so now my daughter is growing up in this area, and I want her to be involved. I want her to go to powwows, because for us in this area, that's one of the biggest ways to connect. So I've actually gotten very good at teaching people about powwows, because especially as I've gotten older and I've become everyone's only Native American friend that they feel comfortable enough to ask weird questions to, I've gotten very good at explaining it. So I always, encourage people to go. If they see one that is even an hour's drive away, go to it. Go to it. Most of the time they're free to attend. And it is just an incredible way, I think, to experience the thriving culture of Native America. I think there's a misconception that we're wearing the same things that we wore 200 years ago or 300 years ago, and that we're singing the same songs that tribes were singing 300 or 400 years ago. I don't think they realize that it is still an evolving culture. And that's something that I like to do, in that I like sewing regalia, I like making ribbon skirts, and I make little kid ribbon skirts in little kid patterns so that you can get little kids to wear them. Because it's just like anything. If you want a kid to wear it, sometimes you got to slap Paw Patrol on there just to get them to keep it on, right? And it always surprises people whenever they see that I've made a ribbon skirt that is Frozen themed. Frozen, I assume you know what Frozen is, right? Like you don't live under. I know you don't have kids, but you don't live under a rock. You know what Frozen is, right?
Yes.
So whenever I hear there's a powwow, I encourage people to go. Washington University powwow again is another one of those ones that year after year. It's great. It's local. I get friends to go to it, and I always compare it to it's like going to a basketball game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like going to church. You don't have to necessarily show up at a specific time and wear a certain thing and speak in very hushed tones in order to attend and observe. It's throughout the day. You can go and watch. You can sit in the stands, sit in the bleachers, wherever you are and observe. You can ask questions. There's always people around that I've always found that there's things to watch. There's your kids don't have to sit still and quiet. It's more like a basketball game. Mm-hmm. It's something that you can relax at and have fun at and talk at and be comfortable at and eat a hot dog at and observe. So I definitely encourage people to go. Yeah. I think hopefully when people hear that, it sort of takes away some of this this air of mystery around them. Because then they can go and they can see how vibrant it is and how fun and welcoming it really is. Just because, I'm not encouraging people, obviously, to go out into the circle and dance or touch people's outfits or, I always try to give some good etiquette tips, but I definitely tell them it's a great thing to go see. It's a great way to go and learn about this culture that's still thriving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And you said you competed. Like, what could you tell the audience about, the type dance that you did? And
yeah. Well, I was a fancy shawl dancer. So that's also sometimes called a butterfly dancer. And the dancer wears a dress, a top, usually either a blouse or it can be a long sleeve shirt. Sometimes I've seen 3/4 lengths with a bib or an apron over it. And then they wear a long shawl. And a shawl is really just what you think a shawl is. A shawl is a big square of material, hemmed on all sides, with fringe on the sides of it. But it's what comes into the details. It's what comes into the colors and the stitching and the decoration that really sets it apart. And that's really how a lot of, I think, Native powwow regalia is. People go and they don't realize that they could be looking at 5 dancers from 5 completely different nations. Their eyes focus on the similarities. And who can blame them? There have been attempts to assimilate our culture for hundreds of years, right? So there are a lot of things that we all share, intertribally, right? That's the right word, intertribally. But it's really when you start to look at all of the differences and start to appreciate the nuances of each dancer and of each dancer's regalia, that I think it gives an even deeper appreciation for how beautiful all of these things are. And fancy shawl, I love being a fancy shawl dancer. Now I'm a little older now. So when I got a little older, and I didn't dance at powwows for the longest time because I was working. I was trying to get a career going, and it was very difficult for me in the kind of work that I did. I traveled a lot, so it was hard to do that. But now I'm in a place where I can actually, the past several years, I've been able to do more again. I'm more settled. And now I am dancing jingle. So it's always the debate. Whenever I found out, my husband and I found out we were having a baby, the debate raged until we knew the gender. We found out the gender. And then it was just another big, huge debate in my family. Well, what style, do you want her to dance shawl? Do you want her to dance jingle? Do you want her to dance traditional? And it's just been an ongoing thing in my family. So I intend to encourage my daughter to take part in those activities. I hope she wants to. I don't think I'll be able to force her past a certain age, but I don't plan on stopping. So at the very least, I plan on teaching her the right way to behave, all of the proper etiquette, and if she's not dancing, how to carry my stuff, how to help me carry my stuff, because I don't plan on stopping.
That's awesome. Yeah. And can you explain, like, how actually difficult and like actually how well conditioned you have to be to do like these dances?
It is. Yeah. I'm asked that a lot. And I've been asked that a lot in my life. How do you know when to do what? Is there choreography? And is there a way you can practice? Or do you just have to sort of make it up as you go? And I always say yes, yes, yes to all of it. I grew up as a little girl with a little elastic waist skirt and a T-shirt with some ribbons sewn on it that my mom put together for me, and a shawl safety pinned to the back of my T-shirt, because little kids, they just kind of run around. And then over time, I grew into having nicer regalia. I learned things. We didn't have the same resources to learn, to get ideas, to learn new techniques. We were operating without any assistance from my dad, who wasn't around growing up, and in an area where there wasn't a big abundance of Anishinaabe people. So I learned from going to powwows. I learned from making friends with other dancers, from my grandma making friends with other grandmas, and my mom making friends with other aunties, and looking at what they did, learning what they did, and practicing and dancing like they did. And as I got older, I was able to graduate to looking online, to maybe, now there's YouTube videos and all kinds of there's workout videos, there's all kinds of cool stuff out there. But yeah, you do have to be conditioned. You do have to be, I think, in the right kind of headspace to be out there and be a part of it. Like I said, I don't claim to really be a religious person. I'm not a very religious person. But I have a huge respect for all of the feelings and all of the the intentions, I think, that go into dancing and being in that circle. And when I'm dancing in the circle, I feel good. And if I've had a bad week and I go to a powwow, I feel good when I'm out there. And I can't go to a powwow. I can't hear the drums without wanting to be out there. I remember one year, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. I went to the Washu powwow. I think my husband and I might even have been 6 or 7 years ago. We started dating, and I had some regalia, but I didn't really have, everything I wanted to have together, because, I like having the certain look, right? I didn't have all my stuff. And I had some stuff out at my grandma's still, and I had some stuff at my husband and I were living together. So I had some stuff at his house and stuff at her house, and I thought, well, this year I'm just going to go to the powwow, and I'm just going to watch. I've got some friends people I work with that are going to come, and some people that I know from out of town that will be there. So I'm just going to go watch. And I was there probably half an hour when I looked over at my husband, and he said, do you want me to run home and get your stuff? And I said, yeah. And my mom called and said, I'm picking up your grandparents. We'll be there in like an hour and a half. And I said, can you get my other stuff from my room at my grandma, at Nanny's? We call her Nanny. get my stuff from my room at Nanny's, and my mom was like, yeah, sure. Why is everything okay? I'm like, I can't go through the day without dancing. And by the end of the day, I was dancing. I didn't care about competing. I just wanted to be out there. I wanted to be there. And it's so funny because I remember being a little kid, and all I wanted to do was run around and play with my friends and run and hide and play chase, and get yelled at by all the vendors who are sick of little kids running around, their tables and try to kiss up to whoever I knew in the food booth to get some food. And I just wanted to goof off the whole time. And I couldn't understand why adults just wanted to just sit there or just, go to the powwow all day. There was so much cool stuff to do. I remember there was a powwow at Scott Air Force Base. There used to be one at Scott Air Force Base every year. And man, it was like in an airplane hangar. And I'm like, why do they want to just sit around and, watch the powwow? There's like planes over here to play with. And now, like, I'm an adult, and my husband and I would take my stepkids when they were little, and they were the same way. I'm like, I just want to sit here and listen to music. I just want to sit here and socialize. And they're like, but there's hay bales over in this barn that's on the so it's funny, yeah, how I've kind of come full circle. And now I'm just I'm a regular old boring grown up. But I love being out there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to kind of get out was, how, the powwow has kind of connected with you on a physical, spiritual, emotional, and social, and mental level. It kind of contributes to all aspects of your well-being. And that's why I wanted to kind of portray, and share that with the audience.
Yeah. It's been such a tough summer because I was so excited about this summer because my ribbon skirt making business really picked up, and like Wash U was going to be Cassie Hussman, who I'm sure you know. Cassie and I were going to have a booth together at the powwow at Wash U, and we were both just like, yeah. And a month before, I mean, you had to do it. Obviously, you had to do it. But I just remember thinking like, oh God, like it's postponed. And then it was just like dominoes. Like every other post on Instagram was like, Gathering of Nations is postponed. Denver March is postponed. This one is postponed. And it was like, no. So I am very, very ready to be able to get back out as soon as we can, safely. And see everybody.
Yeah, hopefully with everything going on, Watch You will have the powwow going on. So
yeah,
there's some news out there, which I think we'll find out if what's going on with that situation. So
yeah, great.
Yeah, if you could tell us more about the ribbon skirts. You mentioned that a few times, and you said that you make ribbon skirts. Could you tell us everything about ribbon skirts?
Everything about ribbon skirts? Yeah. Sure. So I guess just like a brief history of the ribbon skirt. It was originally thought to be an Anishinaabe garment, and what probably prompted ribbon skirts was, as you know, all of the atrocities committed against Native people over the centuries, everything from removal of their lands, relocation, Indian boarding schools, all of these things. This attempt to assimilate, and erase a very regulated, structured, substantial effort to erase Native culture was going on. And it's only been over the last 50 to 60 years, maybe, that we've really, because there were still Indian boarding schools, I think I know my dad was adopted from one. Mm-hmm. In 1968. So wow. These are not ancient history, ancient historical places. Mm-hmm. So the way ribbon skirts were taught to me was that it symbolizes the attempt to assimilate and erase our culture and our big raised fist to not let that happen. When natives were taken off of their ancestral lands and either placed in boarding schools or placed on reservations or prison camps, they were given cloth the skins were taken away, the furs were taken away, the traditional, whatever, their tribe's individual decorative items were taken away, and they were given fabric and told, make yourself some civilized clothing. Mm-hmm. So what did we do? We made the exact same stuff that we'd been wearing. We made long skirts that went to the ground, that connected us with Creator and with the earth, that were in the shape of our dwellings. We decorated them with ribbons. We used sacred colors. We used materials that maybe hadn't been traditionally used in the past, things like snuff can lids, or silk ribbons, or satin ribbons, or wool. And then we put those into our dresses. And a ribbon skirt can be a lot of things. It can be a ceremonial garment that maybe has specific meaning in how it's been made, in the conditions under which it's been made, the colors that have been used, maybe the designs and things that are used on it. Or it can be a protest flag that is in colors or with a message that promotes awareness about what the person wearing it wants to share. I've seen skirts that are very, very simple with 4 rows of ribbon on them: red, yellow, white, and black, the medicine colors. I've seen skirts that are 30 rows of ribbon, every shade of pink you can imagine, with a big pink ribbon embroidered on the front for breast cancer awareness. One that I just finished for my daughter, because we're going up to this wedding, and my family are Tampa Bay Lightning fans. My in-laws are Tampa Bay Lightning fans, so I made this one for my daughter to wear. Obviously, let's go Blues.
So both of them have won the Stanley Cup.
What? I know. I'm never going to hear the end of it. But still, she's still going to be proudly representing. So you can have them. They're on a very wide spectrum. But I think that what they symbolize is that our existence is our resistance, and that we will not have our culture erased. We will not have our culture assimilated. We will celebrate it. We'll make it modern and gorgeous and accessible. And I think that I encourage anyone to wear a ribbon skirt, whether they're a person who is non-native or a two-spirit person, because I think when it's worn in a respectful way, I think that it shows that you are an ally to our people, to whether we're Navajo, Comanche, Ojibwe, whatever. I think it shows that you are an ally to Native people and to the things that are important to them, especially when it's worn in a respectful way. Mm-hmm. So I love it, and I get a lot of enjoyment. I have an Etsy shop, so that's been really fun. The quarantine really helped me finally focus on getting my Etsy shop up off the ground. And
there's a way for, people, like if you're taking orders or,
Yeah, I'm always taking orders. Yeah, I sew adult skirts all the way down to little 6-month-old size skirts. I do have an Etsy store. I can give you that information. And I'm on Instagram also. And it's really given me another way to connect with not only other natives from my own background, other Anishinaabe people, but natives across the country now. And it's given me an even deeper appreciation and respect for my family, who sewed regalia for me all those years and sewed hundreds of little ribbons on hundreds of little shawls. And it's made me really feel connected. Yeah, I enjoy it a lot.
Well, good. Yeah, glad to hear that. And glad that, now you're kind of you open yourself up to, letting the community know, like, hey, I make these too. So if you want one, you can purchase one through me. So.
Yeah. And I think it's been good for me too, because, I just on a personal note with me, I never expected, I didn't even think I could have a baby. I was married before. When I was in my early 20s, I got married very young. And I married my college boyfriend, and we couldn't have a baby. And then I was divorced and single forever and ever, right? And then I meet my husband, and we didn't think we could have a baby. I just didn't think I could have a child. And I had put a lot of focus on my career, and I worked in human resources, and I was moving up in companies to where I was at a director level. I had one foot in the door for a VP level position at a company I was at, and happily married with stepkids, just really life kind of on a completely different path, a great path, but not a baby path, not a kid path, not a little bitty kid path, right? My stepkids were a little older by then. And then I found out we were going to have a baby. And it was thrilling and a blessing and insane and awesome and scary and wonderful. All of the things, right? And then I made the decision to my husband too, obviously, and I told him I was going to do it. We made the decision for me to stop working outside of the home and to become a stay-at-home mom. If you would have asked me 7 years ago if I thought I would be a stay-at-home mom living in suburban Baldwin, no, that's not what I thought I would be doing. And while I am very happy doing that, I was a little nervous, letting go of that other career. And I thought, well, what am I going to do to keep busy now other than, obviously being a mom to a little one, but, even she has to take a nap or fall asleep at some point. I'm like, what am I going to do? Am I just going to keep the house clean? Am I just going to cook and, show up at the bake sale and talk to the lady who says she has an Indian spirit guide and is wearing a wolf and fairy t-shirt? What am I going to do? And I started getting back into sewing, which I was raised by crafters. I was not raised by bakers and cookers. I was raised by crafters, sewers, beaters, crocheters, knitters, painters. And so I already knew how to sew. I'd been sewing since I was 10 years old. But I got my machine back out probably 2 years ago, right after my daughter was born. And I thought, I'm going to make her a blanket or something and make her something. And my mom said, well, why don't you make her a little ribbon skirt? And I said, oh my God, I haven't made a ribbon skirt in years. And there was a lot of trial and error and some wasted material that shall not be named. And suddenly it was like riding a bike. And I realized, oh my God, I forgot how much I really loved doing this. And so I made another one. And then I had a friend say, well, my daughter's dancing, now can you make her a little camp dress and a little ribbon skirt? And before I knew it, I was just full-fledged back into this, sewing every day, working on regalia. And then about a year ago, I'd started an Etsy shop, and it was sort of, whatever. But then whenever the shutdown and all of that happened, I started just thinking, there is no better time than right now to get really serious about getting out there, putting my name out there, showing people that I know what I'm supposed to do, that I know what I can do, and helping other people out where I can. And having a little nice side business too. So now it's like I'm even more passionate about ribbon skirts and sewing and regalia than I really ever was. And I just didn't know how I'd ever live outside of an office. So I was totally just an office person. But yeah, ribbon skirt making has really not only connected me back to culture and to people, but it's given me another purpose as well. It's given me another dimension of myself.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah. And
I feel like I'm just like blah 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 blah, but hopefully.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I really do think that's really great that you're able to, have that connection and, you're able to kind of in a way, teach yourself, a lot
Yeah,
of this
teach
stuff.
myself.
Yeah. So.
Teach myself, teach my kid, teach friends.
Yeah. And then I got to pass that knowledge on, So.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe she won't be a dancer. Maybe she'll be a sewer. I would love it if she was a beater because I'm not very good at that. I'm not as good at that. I try really hard, but it's not my forte. So hopefully she's good at that.
Yeah, the beating, that's not, yeah. I see all kinds of different patterns and designs, and I'm just like, man, that just looks so much work dealing with like some small, those little small tiny beads. And I'm just like, I can't have a lot of patience for that, But, all right, yeah, we're going to pretty much wrap things up. Yeah. Do you have any like final thoughts, messages you would like to share with the, local community, Missouri?
No, really, I just and thank you for asking me this stuff. I know I tend to ramble and talk about a mile a minute. I don't really fit the cool, stereotype of being very, very stoic. I suck at stoicism. I'm always grinning and chattering. It's the German grandma. It's the German St. Louis grandma. What can I say? But hopefully, if nothing else, if there is anybody that wants to learn more about their culture, that wants to be connected to other natives in the community, I would hope that they always know that they can reach out to you, to reach out to me through you, and know that we are an accepting and a loving and a kind community in St. Louis, and that we're happy to have you no matter who you are, and always happy to have you help us celebrate who we are.
Well said. Yeah. And thank you for taking time out to participate in this project and, sharing your experiences and, your own story. So I hope this really connects and resonates with the audience.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And then for the audience, please check out our other segments that we'll be sharing through the WashU website. All right. Thank you.